All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Blacspiration podcast, where we don't abide by Mayo metrics and we love all black people one episode at a time. I am your host, the infamous Hood Rat with the Heart of Gold himself, your third favorite Washington, your friendly neighborhood shiesty man, member of the Certified Yapper Society, Cortez, Washington. And I am so happy to be here. And you already know we joined by a special guest. Asia has a night off, so Asia take a break because she deserves a night off because she's always working so hard. But anywho, we have a special guest. We have Jasmine Williams Jacobs, and we're gonna hear their story, all the dope things they got going on, as well as what other things they got on the horizon, far as like doing, like far as all the things they got going on. So, but first, I want to let y'all know who is Jasmine Williams Jacobs. So, Jasmine T. Williams Jacobs is the founder and director of Black Remote She, a community-driven platform for Black, queer, trans, non-binary people and allies interested in working remotely. As a self-proclaimed equity enthusiast and radical communicator, Jasmine launched Black Remote She to connect Black 2SL, LGBTQIA+, and allies with inclusive work cultures and gender-affirming resources. Using their passion and background in digital organizing and community engagement, Jasmine manages Black Remote She as a progressive system of job and resource sharing. This is a direct quote from Jasmine. The birth of Black Remote She arose to rebel against the inequities often faced in our community. I wanted to bridge the gap of job security, inclusivity, and equity for historically excluded and underserved communities. Folks out there in the world, please show some love for Jasmine Williams Jacobs.
Yes.
Yeah. How you
Thank you
doing?
for
How you doing?
having me. Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here and ready to chat and get going on that. First, before we get into your story, I really want to know like what you been watching? What you been like? Have you been like binging anything recently, or watching anything, or getting into tapping into anything interesting?
It's really the law shows lately. So I just ran through For the People, All Rise, and now we're on The Good Wife. So
Okay.
lots of law shows. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you watch Elsbeth? Have you watched that yet?
Elsa. Why does that sound familiar? Is that new?
Yeah. It's the
Wait, is it Elsbeth from the show?
yes, from the Good Wife. Yeah, she has a spinoff. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, it's
Thank
good.
you.
You'll like it. It's like she does a good job.
Yeah, she's hilarious. I need to know. She was in was it Claws? Is that the name of that show? With Niecy?
Niecy Nash? I think so, yeah.
Yes. She's just so funny.
That's a sleeper show too. That's a sleeper show. I
hmm
watched a few episodes. I got to get back into it cuz I was like, I don't know, y'all. But
Oh
then
no.
I was like, yeah, this show good, man. So,
hmm
I got to
hmm
watch it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what's up. That's what's up. I have been watching. I just finished or binge watched the Netflix miniseries about Vince McMahon. I don't know if you into wrestling or anything.
Hmm.
But Vince McMahon
Mm.
just did like a mini show about him and the things he got going on. And so I watched that, and man, he is a wild dude, man. He is a wild dude, and he treated them kids like shit. All his
Oh
children.
no.
He treated everybody like crap, man.
Yes.
And
Mm.
and so I'm just upset that they let him cook like that. So I don't know.
Oh no.
But hopefully he gets his come up in soon. I mean, he had to leave. He had to leave the company because of some oh my god. uh
Mm.
but he had to leave the company because of some assault allegations and
Oh
trafficking and shit like that
no.
too. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, he's a wild guy. But yeah. And I grew up watching wrestling, so like to hear about some of the stuff that went on backstage really threw me off. Like, oh my god,
Right.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
but I'm glad he's gone. Fuck him. Get out of here,
Right.
nigga.
Out of there. Out
Get
of
out of
there.
there, bro. You gotta go. No,
Yes.
dog. We ain't with
Right.
that.
Not at all.
No. So, Yeah. So I really love to hear your story because like we connected on LinkedIn when you first started your platform. And I actually got a few. I got a few callbacks from a couple places on there. They ain't fuck with me, but I got a few callbacks though.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
so it's cool. It's all right. It's all right
Love
though.
a callback.
Yeah, but we connected then. But like I really didn't. I really haven't got a chance to ask you so like your origin story. So I would really love to hear that. Like, what's your origin story? How'd you get to where you are now? And like, what was that final push? You know?
Yeah, there's so much to the story. There's so much. I'll take it back to just what made me want to create that space.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of freelance work where I worked in a lot of different industries. And so within that, I had an opportunity to really learn what I appreciated about the work that I was doing and what I could do without. And so I went into the work kind of self taught in
Mm-hmm.
digital communications and marketing. And through that work, ended up learning, what I really appreciate is the community engagement aspect of all of this. And so I kind of positioned myself in creating a portfolio where I really showed how important community engagement was when thinking about communications and marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and started working with cooperatives. I also worked with a conference network for women focused on gender parity. And also in the music industry, I was working with a lot of different things. So I had 3 jobs at the time of starting Black Remote She.
Wow.
And yeah, but with those things, I was actually managing multiple websites. So for just one of those clients, I managed 4 websites, and then for another 3, and then for the other 2. So I was managing like 10 websites at once, and it
Mm-hmm.
it hit me, why don't I just create my own space? And so I had a website previously that was just like a general Wix website where I
Mm-hmm.
would write articles, really kind of stepping into activism through written word,
Okay.
because I had been doing spoken word prior to that, which had nothing to do with my work, but all of my spoken word related to activism and talking about Black people, our legacies, our history, and Black futures. And so I just kind of merged that into written word and wrote about hair discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
talking about the laws. I think the Crown Act came out maybe a year before I wrote that article, or the
Okay.
year of. And so just kind of using all of those experiences to really create my own space for my people. And so all of the things that I try to expand for those other organizations to really help them expand their community engagement with Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, but also gender expansive people and folks within the LGBTQIA plus community. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like, it's time for me to just lead that, because I'm ending up leading it in other spaces, and I wasn't hired to do all the things that I'm starting to do now. But it like that was a part of what made me realize like I need to be running my own shit.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I just created the space, like literally one night with my wife, stayed up all night creating the website and launched it during the leap year, February 29th, 2020. I made that website. But prior to that, made a YouTube channel to really talk about my experience working remotely,
Mm-hmm.
really discussing all these different things about what it looked like for me to have that flexibility in my life, and how I kind of made that transition from freelancing to working remotely and managing these different clients, but trying to really connect that to more Black and Brown people so they knew that
Mm-hmm.
was an option for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's the story.
Nice. Nice story. So like
Mhm.
you went from it. It's so interesting to hear like you have that connection and like talking to your wife about like I'm doing all this stuff um
Mhm.
for other people. Why not just invest in myself that same amount of time and energy, and it paying off in a way that was more, might not even like potentially more lucrative, but also just more fulfilling, in a way that
Exactly.
that's really sets you up for this long-term journey of this pathway that you're going down. Because it's cool to hear that you was already just like kind of doing a little bit of everything already, but then you just wanted to
Mhm.
make it into one location, one hub, but also like curate it in the way that you want to curate it. And you
Right.
know, it's interesting to hear like creating like a resource hub or like a job board site or just things like that. And because there's not really like a blueprint for making those things out there. I've never really heard of like a blueprint or like somebody on an Instagram ad like I could teach you in 5 minutes how to
Right.
make this resource hub for the community. You know, just tap in. I ain't never seen nothing
Right.
like that. So
No.
like, so what were some things? So like, what were some things that you had to learn along the way when like getting this up to the space where it is now?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned the job board because that was the hurdle for the longest time. So I created over 100 weekly digests before
Mm,
actually creating a job board.
yeah.
So basically, the jobs were being shared in a weekly digest every week where it was literally bullet points. And people, it was received, but I really wanted to create something that was more accessible where
Mm-hmm.
folks don't have to scroll through multiple different pages to see the different jobs. And so I taught myself, like I do with most things, but I use like a no code software
Mm-hmm.
to really build that. And with the resource hub, I had managed multiple resource hubs from the many websites that I managed for clients before. And so it was just a matter of the time,
Mm-hmm.
making the time to do it. And so, needless to say, I had to let go of those clients that I had when I started Black Remote She so that I could have the time to invest into learning how to use the no code software, how to build the job board using community feedback, because that's really the big thing. Like you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, like there's no blueprint for this. And so I really wanted to just hear, from the community directly, like, what do you appreciate about job boards? What do you really hate about them?
Mm.
How can I give the perfect in between for what y'all are looking for and how you like to navigate job boards?
Yeah.
So as I went through the process of building it, I had people providing feedback, testing it all throughout the community. So people who were actively looking for jobs to see like, how do you like the way this is working? And folks gave me so much feedback. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just continued to develop it. And still to this day, I have options where people can submit information so I can continue to evolve the job board in a way that works best for the community.
Yeah, that community feedback is necessary and it's great because
Mhm.
it's easy when you're doing work, especially when it's just a one person project. It's easy to get siloed and insulated and like
Mhm.
kind of drown out all the other noise while you're in tunnel vision. So it's good that you opened up that pathway. You already had that pathway already open for feedback from folks who are utilizing it. Because yeah, at the end of the day, you don't want to shut out
Mhm.
the people you're trying to make it for. So which
Exactly.
is something that can happen. Um,
Mhm.
but like that's really amazing, and like your background in like digital communications and things like that uh, is also great too. And I just want to know like who were some influences for you along the path of not only when you started out but also like now, like who do you look at for like do you tap into to be like, oh, what do they got some good gems for me or do they got some nice stuff I can like soak up like now?
Yeah. There's so many places. I feel like a big piece of my inspiration right before creating the website, when I had been doing YouTube and just kind of talking about my own personal experience, was the Radical Communicators Network,
Mm-hmm.
which someone told me about at the Cooperative Institute that I worked at. And they were like, I really feel like you'd appreciate this network. And so I tapped in, and it was led by, at the time, she was the director of communications at Movement for Black Lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now she fully runs the Radical Communicators Network by herself. But Chanel Matthews, absolutely incredible human, who created that space. And it's a listserv, like it's simply a listserv. They have a website too, but
Mm-hmm.
they share so much related to radical communications, narrative change, and theory of change. Like they just really focus on Black feminist values, and it shows in the way that they move and do their work, and the way that they make it so open to community. There's no restrictions on who can come in. You just have to have some type of communications background.
Mm-hmm.
But so much of that work and seeing how community focused it was really drove me to realize like we can have so many spaces like this where we're just creating community where people can provide feedback, where they can use their voice to be able to share information and share resources
Mm-hmm.
rapidly to large groups of people. And so definitely the Radical Communicators Network. But I was also really inspired as I've built back Black Remote She over the years, because I'm coming up to 5 years in February, which is just so wild to think
Wow.
about.
That's amazing.
Yes, yes, it's the time is moving. It escaped me. But in this time, like I really appreciated watching Trans Tech Social, from Angelica leading in the beginning to then passing it over to EC, and now she's coming back. I just saw that email this week that Angelica Ross is coming back to lead Trans Tech Social. And so just seeing the ways that they've pulled together connecting trans folks in tech to opportunities and resources, the way that they've shared free resources, created partnerships to share even more free resources that aren't typically free
Hmm.
with trans people, has really inspired me to just want to continue to build those collaborations and connections to share those resources with other people. And so a lot of Black Remote She is just a big accumulation of all of these incredible organizations that do that type of work
Hmm.
in one space. So in the resource hub, many of those opportunities that they're sharing are present there, because there's so much goodness that's happening with these grassroots organizing organizations where they don't get as much popularity. They're not in the big list that you see, but they're doing incredible work. And I, being a part of that work and having been a part of those networks, really wanted to be able to help other people see, like, hey, these are folks who are doing mutual aid services. Like, these are places you can get funding, you can get free master classes on learning how to work in tech, being able to get certifications for free through Trans Tech,
Hmm.
being in the Radical Communicators Network, learning about speaking engagements, consulting opportunities, and job opportunities, all present there. And these are spaces that are just simply led by the community that they're serving. And so I just really appreciate spaces like that, and it's been so inspiring for me.
That is so amazing. And those are two two hubs that I wasn't even familiar with. And but so you dropping game on me, so I appreciate that. But also just to hear like those spaces are curated and available for folks to hop in, and not to have that like there's a certain aspect when it comes to a lot of spaces too, and I hate to like spin it in a negative way, but they have like a certain like criteria, you know, or you got to have certain accolades or
Mm,
certain like experience, and because then
mhm,
otherwise they don't feel you, they don't see you as valuable for that space, which is unfortunate,
mhm.
especially for people who, especially for us when we get into places, there's not a lot of resources for us, you know,
Right.
there's not a lot of exposure to all the certain things that can be accessible to you when you first start out, far as like workshops and just like resources, or just like managing up or anything like that in the workspace. So it's just like it's good to hear that there are spaces like that, and also creating that safe space for trans folk, queer folk, non-gender binary folk, because there is like that hard stigma with getting into the tech world and being
Right.
and experiencing everything that you experience. Um,
Mhm.
far as like the tech space itself, like how was navigating that, you know, and kind of doing everything you, because you kind of did everything on your own, so it was a really like
Mhm.
OG perspective of it, you know, which is the most beautiful thing about tech, which is like it's really trial and
Right.
error. If you got the mind for it, it's really trial and error. So like, how was that for you, like getting into this space and like really expanding on the skill set that you acquired while building out Black Remote She?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think it's always interesting to me because I get connected in that tech space, and I see how that's possible because I am creating all of the tech that's connected to the platform that I've created.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I don't perceive what I do as being in tech, and I think it's because I just really focus on this community engagement piece, and so it more so feels like I don't even want to say leading. Another, I'll lead by saying this. Another center that has really inspired my work, and I'm actively working through Ella Baker's Catalytic Leadership book currently.
Mm-hmm.
But the Ella Baker Center for Leadership is a space that I really appreciate because they're using these practices that Ella Baker had during her time and within her legacy
Mm-hmm.
to create and build leaders that are focused on creating equitable partnership with the community instead of on the community.
Mm.
And so I more so see myself doing that work. Like I feel like I am co-leading and co-creating fully resourced communities with the community. Like I'm
Okay.
working alongside them.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like there's no industry that really holds space for that. It feels like
They don't.
I'm operating in a totally separate system
Yeah.
outside of, yeah, any of the industries that they've created. It's like
Hmm.
I'm operating in my ancestral space.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
yeah,
I love
yeah,
that.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. And so like a lot of the language that I've built around what I'm doing with Black Remote She and calling it community driven,
Hmm.
having a community driven job board where basically the community is determining what's on the job board, not me.
Yeah.
I do the work behind the scenes. I'm doing all the research, all of that.
Hmm.
But the community voices that share their feedback across the internet, not only just to Black Remote She, but in all of these employee review site platforms, accountability call out articles, the interviews, all of that that I'm constantly looking at throughout the week.
Hmm.
The community is determining, like, yeah, y'all said it wasn't safe. Y'all provided the references. Y'all read it up. I got you. Noted. They're on the red flag list. They can't be here because they're not creating those safe spaces. They're not taking the accountability to respond to the harm
Yeah.
that y'all called them out for. Cool, got you.
Hmm.
But even the language of like Black Remote She being a progressive system of job and resource sharing, that's bell hooks.
Hmm.
And All About Love, she talks about how creating a progressive system of job sharing specifically is one of those innovative ways of showing love and creating love in partnership with the community, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I think about all those things and I'm like, is it tech? I don't, because tech, do y'all hold space for that? I don't know. But I would say, just in thinking about the connections of tech and it being on the internet in general, having a website,
Hmm.
I feel like what's felt most natural to me is the ability to freely learn and have free access to things. And so I'm
Hmm.
constantly on the computer because there's so much information available. And it's just been a matter of trial and error of using the right keywords, learning about how other people are referencing things that we're all looking for, like financial assistance, mutual aid, being able to learn what are the organizations that are leading that work and doing that work, and
Yeah.
really focused on information. Someone actually described recently to me, I spoke to a community member who said they feel like the work that I do is facilitating information and information sharing.
Hmm.
And that felt like the most on point description of like what I'm doing. Cause it's like, yeah, I'm really trying to give y'all the resources and the tools
Hmm.
to have the information that you need based on where you are and the needs that you have actively in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a conduit of
Mm-hmm.
resources, connecting the
Mm-hmm.
dots between the people who are looking for folks, while also connecting the dots to the people that are looking for places, but also wanting to give people tips and tricks. Throw out the red flags.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a. I love that it's like, in a way, in the most non-violent, in the most like non-harmful
Mm-hmm.
way, radical and anarchist in a sense, because
Yes.
it's taking away the get it out the mud mentality that
Mm-hmm.
that is really developed and instilled in a lot of folks, like that meritocracy of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and being like, yeah, you can do that, but before you put them boots on, read this first. And
Mm-hmm. Okay.
before you tie him up, like, come talk to me about this, because you might be heading in the wrong direction. And so it's that just that melting pot of all these aspects of everything going on. Because when and it's funny because you was like, I really don't see myself in the tech space, because, like, yeah, in the analog world, like, away from tech,
Mm-hmm.
you're community, you're building a community organization, you're a community organizer,
Right.
you're doing community engagement, resource allocation, all those things. But in the digital space, you got
Mm-hmm.
a community board, you got job postings, you got sources, you got all these things. You're basically Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
but
Right,
but a,
right.
but a way
For
safer
people.
space. Yeah, Reddit.
Yes, yes,
and so uh
definitely.
and so it's just good to see that, and like but taking that stuff that is analog and the way it translated so it's translating so well in the digital space, because that's really hard. Like,
Yeah.
and it seems like your ideas and things came around perfectly around like line aligned with the pandemic. Unfortunately, the pandemic was happening, unfortunately, and the shift to digital would have happened still for sure, but I feel like it would have been like
Right.
a few years off before then.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always say it was definitely aligned timing for
Mm-hmm.
the timing of me launching the website, because I could not have foreseen what was about to happen within that next month of the national emergency for COVID happening. And
Mm-hmm.
so prior to the website, when I was on YouTube, I felt like it was almost like this educational tool, because I consistently had Black folks specifically saying, like, you keep talking about working remote, like, what does that mean? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, let me put y'all on for real. And so I didn't have to explain anymore
Mm-hmm.
after the website and then March happening, because everybody had to learn what remote work is if they didn't already know about it.
Yes, they did. They had to learn the hard way. They had to learn the hard
Mm-hmm.
way that the computer at home sucked or the internet was trash.
Right, right. For real, for real.
Yeah. Or their job could be done from home and they just want you in the office just because they got to come to the office. So it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
interesting, interesting stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. They started to really realize, like, okay, okay, got you. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is what we doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I put this suit
Right,
on. I put this suit on every day for no reason.
right, right. Let me put on these sweats. Let me put on this t-shirt and call it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My camera ain't working. My camera work. I just ain't want to take off my bonnet. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay. 100%. Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most
Why you need
definitely.
to see my face if I'm doing a PowerPoint? Come on now, let's be real. But
No.
but how is it? So with you being an entrepreneur now and like running your own thing, how does that differ from like working with an organization or working under the organization for you?
It's real different in a really good way
Mm,
for me, because I am very self-directed, I
mm,
guess. I would say anyone who I've worked with at any organization previously would say, like, yeah, Jasmine is like, you know, just making things happen. Like, so much so that it was constantly like, oh, well, why don't you also help us over here in this department? Because it's like I'm doing all the things and now I'm restructuring organizational processes. And I'm like, well, but I'm digital communications. What's going on? So it's like
mm,
I realized, like, I feel like I was always meant to do that. And I can definitely say, having done freelancing,
mm,
I did already have that experience of, like, I'm working by myself. I'm having to pull the leads to figure out who I'm working with this week. And I was doing a lot of like ghostwriting specifically
okay.
when I was freelancing. And so I had to search those people out. I was using, at the time, Upwork was really popular back then. This was before they went public.
Mm,
But so yeah, I was like, working remotely in 2017, really consistently doing freelancing. I had dropped out of college and chose that as my pathway.
mm.
And so it feels like I was meant to end up here in entrepreneurship.
Nice, nice. You always had that. You always had that
Mhm.
spirit. You always had that
Mhm.
spirit and that mindset, and that's a that's a beautiful thing to have because it's it's a lost art in a way. Seeing people who really
Right.
who really are like like that, and for you to be
Mhm.
cultivated or like have to motivate yourself is amazing to hear too. Um, so like, sorry, my nose is itching. Oh,
No, you're fine.
all right, I'm good. So,
You're fine.
Black Remote She is at its core a resource hub. So like, but for those who are like unfamiliar, so like if they listen to this episode later on or anything like that, like what is like one free nugget you can give them now, like on this show, and then like and what are some things they can see like when they go on there too? Because that's always a thing that I love to get. It's like get somebody like a free nugget, just a little bit.
Like, So something that's not on the website or
Something that's not on the website. I don't know. It depends on. You can
is
say whatever
not
you
on the
want.
website.
You know how rappers be like, I'm
Hmm.
gonna do a freestyle, but it's a verse from like an album.
Oh, yo.
You don't have to
I
do
mean,
that,
the
but you
album
know.
hasn't been released yet. Yeah. I got you. I got you. Okay, okay. Yes, yes. I have the perfect one. So I am horribly, horribly active with social media
Mm,
just as a person in general. Also, what I love about running a business, because I was forced to do it for other people. It's like I had to.
yeah.
And now I'm like, nope, actually, I don't. I'm only going to do it when it's necessary, when it's meaningful.
Mm,
And so I have created multiple highlights on the Black Remote She Instagram page of the many things that folks either send me or I see from the many organizations that I follow that sometimes specifically share resources on their Instagram page. So, for
mm,
example, Black Emotional and Mental, I can't remember the acronyms escaping me, but Beam recently opened applications for their parent fund, but
mm,
specifically this round is focused, and they do this quarterly, but this round was specifically focused on offering financial assistance to hurricane folks who are impacted by the hurricane in Georgia and North Carolina.
yeah.
And so they shared this on their Instagram page for like a day,
Mm,
and now it's closed because there was that many submissions, but I was able to share it on the Black Remote Sheet story, and it's in a highlight. And so some of those moments of like, if you see that Black Remote Sheet has a story up on Instagram, it's definitely worth clicking because
yeah.
normally it's going to be some type of fund. The deadline may be coming up really quickly. I always try to share these things in the resource hub too, but sometimes the timing, people just close things before I get a chance to put it on the website, or they specifically shared it on their Instagram. And so all of the information is there. You have to use an email address to reach out. So there's
Mm,
mutual aid funds that show up there, financial assistance in general, but really also research studies. There's a paid research study highlight on there. And so for folks who are like, I'm trying to find some extra income, some passive income, there are opportunities that are often shared there.
okay. Great. 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 Great.
Mhm.
Great. So it's not just the site. It's everywhere. You everywhere with it.
It's everywhere. Yes.
Yeah.
LinkedIn will get a few things on the Black Remote Sheet page too.
Mm,
But yeah, I try to there's multiple things. There's a fund going on right now for Black mothers and women identifying mothers who are based in specific counties in Virginia.
mm,
And they're giving $1,000 monetary support to 50 random people who submit for that opportunity. And I think that's
okay.
from Black Mothers Blooming. And
Mm,
so that was shared on the Black Remote She LinkedIn page earlier today. It's also in the resource hub, but for those moments of people where they're looking on their regular social media scrolling, for folks who do that,
yeah.
there are opportunities that are typically shared specifically in those places and the Black Remote She Facebook group.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. So for somebody to be like, so if somebody ran up on you on the street and was like, "Oh, you such and such from Black Remote Sheet. Hey, I fuck with that. Woo 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 woo." What's a quick tip you can give somebody about maximizing their like present when it comes to applying for a job off your job board?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. A tip that I would give is use the filters on the job board because they are made very intentionally to make your life easier. So the filters on there, there's a related causes filter. So if you're like, I'm specifically looking for jobs in reproductive justice, I'm looking for a contract role to work in addition to this full-time role that I have right now because I'm trying to transition out into consulting work full time. Use those filters to specifically look for reproductive justice roles that are contracts because the job board filters will do that for you.
That's amazing. That's great. One
Mhm.
second, I gotta close my door because my dog's barking. But I was
No,
listening to
you're
that.
fine.
Yeah. But the filters are like the filters help out for sure because you don't want to be looking for something
Mhm.
and then be like, oh, they want me to be here. I don't know if I could do that.
Right,
I'm in Cleveland.
right, exactly. Right, exactly, exactly. And so there's a filter for locations. If you're like, no, I need something fully remote, full stop. you can specifically make sure that you're looking at all of the fully remote jobs. Make sure you use the sort by filter as well to make sure you're looking at open roles and not closed roles. But yeah, those are the tips I give right off the bat. Like, maximize the job board to work best for you so that you're using your time in a way that feels even more comfortable navigating the job search, because it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to
Mhm.
definitely use those tools. Uh,
Mhm.
he is going hard back there. It's all right. It's all right. Um, so you know, as people who are chronically online, you know, that could be very stressful and it could be very draining. So when you're out in the world and you like after you get done pouring out into all these different spaces that you're in, how do you refill your cup? Like what do you do to refill your cup and keep yourself grounded and give you that energy back?
Keep my phone on do not disturb. That is probably
Mm.
the biggest thing. I really do that all day, unless there's like emergencies happening, and so I'll keep it open. But it really forces me to make sure that once I put the laptop down, I'm no longer looking at screens unless it's my TV. And even then, I'll grab a book if I need to just completely take a break from screens. But
Mm-hmm.
I really find joy in disconnecting from the screens when I can. And also getting out in my local community. I feel like this year specifically, because with COVID, navigating COVID and being someone who's extremely COVID conscious,
Mm-hmm.
there was, I would say, from 2020 to 2022, I was not really actively going out. And
Yeah.
so, specifically within the last year, we've gotten a bit better in trying to acclimate ourselves, being masked, but also going to spaces where we know that they're prioritizing people being masked,
Mm-hmm.
um, and being able to connect. To be fair, oftentimes it's very much focused on community organizing, but I really enjoy those spaces. And when it's not, it's like an art show. My wife is an artist, and also a tarot reader. And so I really enjoy going to the events that she has in person where I can just kind of be, because I'm not there to work. She's there to
Yeah.
work, but I can be and kind of absorb the space. There's a lot of really cool stuff that she's done this year, like working at drag shows where she was doing readings. And so I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying the DJ. Yeah, those are the things that I've really been enjoying doing this year to disconnect.
Nice, nice, yeah. So touching some damn
Mm.
grass. Hope y'all hear that. Touch some damn
Mm-hmm.
grass. Them people on the internet ain't
Yes.
real people. Touch some grass, but they are real people too, though. So
Right.
don't say nothing
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But also, they some of them
Right,
ain't real.
right.
Yeah,
Some of them literally are not real. Yeah,
not
bots, straight up. Mhm.
literally. Yeah, literally. Be like
Literally.
that shit is cold, cuz on fleek. What? What does that mean?
Yeah,
Because that's some bot shit right there. But
straight up.
yeah, when
Hold on.
when the vernacular don't line up in a proper sentence, it could be an 8-year-old white boy or a bot.
Right, right. I was gonna say, yeah, it's definitely
One of the two. So
right. One of the two.
yeah. So we get close to the end of the episode, and this is the time where we love to have the guests give off some like words of advice or positive affirmations or things you like to chant to yourself or say to yourself to keep you going, you know. And we would love you to drop some gems on the listeners and the watchers out there.
Mm,
So take a step back.
mm, mm. There's one that's just coming up. Your time, energy, and expertise is expensive. And I've shared
Mm.
this in affirmations and Black Women Sheet numerous times, but it's always worth stating again. Um, it's yeah, I feel like I was inspired to give that affirmation at one point from Ayanda Stood. And so I'm just, first of all, I love plugging folks. It's also the joy of my work.
Mm.
Ayanda Stood, the newsletter is just incredible. And so for people who love newsletters, who are inspired by newsletters and appreciate being able to get something useful in your inbox, highly recommend. I feel like the reminders of how human we are and
Mm-hmm.
how important it is to feel our humanness and not be
Mm.
so disconnected from that because of screens, because of people trying to constantly exploit us and
Mm.
use our energy for their own benefit. It's so important to just be able to find spaces that really remind you of your humanness. And that's just one of those newsletters. But yeah, I would say that would be the other thing. Remember your humanness and hold space for it.
Mm. Love it. I love that. You know, you got to remember to give yourself that grace
Yes.
because you're a work in progress too. You know,
Hmm.
and if and I heard something similar too with that vein. It's like you if you wouldn't say that to your best friend, then don't say it to yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
Because if one of your best friends said that to you, you'd be like, man, I don't know if I fuck with him no more.
Mm.
You know.
Hmm.
So, but
Hmm.
thank you.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind. Be
Hmm.
sweet. Yeah.
Hmm.
Jasmine, thank you so much for being on the show. This was amazing. You came in, dropped some nugs, dropped some gems on the folks. Where can the listeners find you on social media? And if they tap into the Black Remote Sheet Resource Hub and go on the site, comb it up and down, left and right, what can they expect when they go on there?
Yes, definitely. On Instagram, black.remote.she, LinkedIn, Black Remote She LLC, Facebook, Black Remote She LLC. Also, Black Remote She is on Mastodon on the Black Twitter IO. And what other social media? There's a Black Remote She Facebook group as well for folks who are interested in getting. There's also organizations that post there specifically that may not post on the job board. So definitely want to flag that. And then also for the Resource Hub, there is a resource roundup published quarterly throughout the year. And so there's a quarter 4 resource roundup there currently, which has a bunch of funding opportunities, gender affirming resources, mutual aid funds, legal support, sabbatical support, and all the things to support our livelihoods. There's also an article that is for 5 funds for trans and gender expansive people that's updated monthly.
Mm.
And so definitely check that out. There's housing funds on there as well. And there's an email course in the Resource Hub as well. So more support for people who are navigating the job search, trying to also have those affirmations as you're going through the process and being able to better structure it to support you in the way that you're navigating the job search. And also events. I just finished the last event of the year last week. Yeah, that was last week. But there will be more events coming up next year focused on resource allocation and connecting career seekers to resources.
Beautiful, man. Lots of dense content. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
Um, and if you want to find us and follow some of the shit we doing, Blackspiration on Twitter, Blackspiration Pod on Instagram, Blackspiration on Twitch, Blackspiration Podcast on YouTube, Blackspiration everywhere. We're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Thank y'all so much for listening, for tuning in, for watching. Once again, I'm your host, Cortez Washington, and this has been the Blackspiration Podcast. Remember, be happy, drink some water, keep gaming for my gamers, and I hope you left this episode feeling inspired. Peace.